Hello everybody, I'm back with another video for you today, and today we're going to be talking about the state of Gwent a little bit, give my thoughts on, some positives, some negatives about the game, as I often do. But first, I just wanted to say big thank you guys for the 10,000 subscribers. I did have that as a goal when I kind of started uploading daily for YouTube, and it feels really good to hit that mark, so can't really thank you enough for all the support you've thrown my way. It is really humbling to see all the nice comments and feedback and likes and whatnot, as well as the sometimes negative ones, but I do love it all, and yeah, please keep supporting me as you do, guys. It really means a lot. With that being said, I'll be doing some sort of Q&A video type thing, I guess, for those of you that don't, know lots about me already, I suppose. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments. Send them to me on Twitter or whatever if you really want. You can do that, and I'll make a video, I guess, answering some of those at some point. Yeah, we want to talk about Gwent in this video, so let's do that. First things first, basically Gwent at the moment I'm finding to be an insane amount of fun, which is such a rare thing for me to say about Gwent, honestly. Just because I've been doing it kind of as a job, as a living, I guess, for quite a while. I've been competing in tournaments and whatnot, and really focusing on being at a high level. Maybe not, engaging in the fun aspect of the game as much, but I really wholeheartedly can say I'm enjoying the game a lot at the moment. I've been streaming maybe 8-hour days and even playing off stream as well after that, which is just insane. And I think it's a really, a testament to how great the game is at the moment. And of course, I just want to talk about a couple of the reasons why I think that's the case. I'm going to, of course, then after that, talk about a few things that could maybe be improved. I don't even know if they're necessarily problems. That's probably up to you to decide, but yeah, let's talk about all that. So why is Gwent good at the moment, in my opinion? Well, it's really, I think the Gwent feeling is back, and what do I mean by that? Well, in Gwent, you kind of have this unique feeling, or at least I do, a lot of the time, especially in like round 3, where you're playing your last few cards, you're maybe baiting the opponent, making them think you have something, you're predicting what they have, you're playing around cards they might have, and you're maybe getting punished or rewarded based on the reads that you make into their hand. And that's a part of the game that I've just truly loved since the beginning. And of course, as a tournament player, it's really nice as well, because you can maybe outplay your opponent, you can, get some knowledge that, using your brain or whatever, that you wouldn't otherwise have, and that can allow you to maybe win a game, win a tournament or whatever. So that kind of Gwent feeling is back. The hand reading, the bluffing, the kind of counterplay, the predicting what your opponent has and playing around it, all of that stuff feels like it's exactly as it always has been in Gwent, and that is such a great feeling. I can't say it enough. Apart from that, also bleeding just matters quite a lot these days, and part of that is due to the prevalence of engine decks as well as other types of decks. It's not just engines, we also have control decks available, that are viable. We also have point slammy decks like Woodland Spirit or whatever that you can play. So basically, there's a ton of different decks you can play, there's a ton of different styles of deck that you can play, which has always been one of the benefits of Gwent. You're not locked into just playing units and then this or that. You can go for engines on the board, long-term value, short-term value. You want to bleed, maybe you don't want to bleed. All that different stuff is great. There's so many unique combos and stuff going on, whether you're playing Iced or Dana or some other kind of finisher hero leader like Francesca or whatever. Yeah, basically a ton of variety. A lot of decks are viable as well. A lot of leaders are viable. You can play probably about 2, 3, maybe even leaders for each faction and have a pretty okay win rate on Pro Ladder, which is a pretty crazy thing, I gotta say. Having that many kind of viable decks is probably something that Gwent hasn't even had, in the past really that much. And that's maybe, because it's harder to kind of find the most optimized and strong decks. That could be it. Maybe the deck building is more complicated with provisions and stuff, or it might just be that the game is more balanced, more varied. Either way, I'm very happy about that, and that's feeling really good. Also, it feels like not as many kind of factors outside of your control are deciding the games. This is stuff like maybe coin flip, although I'll talk about that later. Potentially matchups. Back in the day, maybe you had Alchemy versus Greatswords, and that would just be a matchup that Greatswords would really hate and have a very low chance of winning. Nowadays, there's very few matchups that I can think of that are like that, if any. And again, that might just be because we're kind of a little bit inexperienced in knowing what a good or bad matchup is, but I don't really think so. I think just in general, decks are not so binary in their kind of game plan that one deck is always winning over another. There's kind of the right amount of consistency in the game that, certain decks can win even if they're maybe a little bit unfavored, and other decks can lose if they're the favorite, if they don't draw well, if they misplay, if they, don't bleed in the correct fashion or whatever. Basically, yeah, not as much kind of out of your control factors deciding games. I think the player input is now more important. And that's also a really lovely thing, and that's maybe an improvement over old Gwent. People ask me a lot, Freddy, how are you actually enjoying new Gwent compared to old Gwent? Do you prefer one or the other? I actually can honestly say I prefer current Gwent, and I know that might be a controversial opinion, but I really think the game's improved a lot. It doesn't have some of the problems that old Gwent did have, and has a lot of, positives as well. So, yeah, I want to talk about some problems as well, but that's kind of me gushing about the game and saying how much I love it right now, because I do. Personally, I'm also kind of finding my mojo again, I think, in terms of being, at a decent level competitively. I'm on Pro Ladder. I'm not dropping off of Pro Ladder. I'm even getting to the maybe top 50 whatever ranks, which is a nice improvement to see compared to, a couple of seasons ago where I was flopping around in the low ranks. Anyway, that's more of a personal thing for me. As you know, I'll be playing in upcoming tournaments, so feels really good to be happy playing a ton of Gwent and really, enjoying that experience, but also, getting better at the game as well. So, with all that said, let's talk about a couple of potential problems. I don't know if they even are. It's a bit of a subjective thing, of course. So, the first thing I want to talk about is no unit decks. Now, I don't know how people will feel about this, but I'm not a huge fan of playing against stuff like Francesca. I'm sure you've seen it with Synthesis. There's not too many decks like it around. I've seen maybe a Woodland no-unit deck or whatever. But I think the consensus is these decks are not very interactive. They're not too fun to play against. They're kind of linear in how they play, i.e., they don't play any units, but what can you do about it? You just play your cards, and then if you win, you win. If you don't, you don't. There's a little bit of nuance to the gameplay against those decks and with those decks, but really compared to kind of the standard games, I don't think it's as good, and also you're often maybe losing or winning based on your deck choice, your kind of cards that you're running. If you're playing a lot of control cards and you're against the no unit deck, well, guess what? You're not going to have any points. If you're playing tool, like a Scorch or a Curse of Corruption, and you're playing against no unit decks, well, guess what? You probably just won the game because you included one of those cards. So what I'm saying is, it kind of takes a bit of player agency out of the matchup, and that's something that Gwent's definitely improved on, I think, in Homecoming, but yeah, it's something that could be improved even a little bit more if you took out those no-unit decks or stopped them seeing much play. I don't know that it's a big issue, and I'm not even that, mad that different types of decks, playing no units is a cool idea, right? That's a completely different way of playing a deck. I don't necessarily hate that that's a thing. I guess it's more that the decisions that you make with the deck and against the deck don't really amount to much. If there was some kind of interesting interactions within that kind of gameplay, then it would definitely be more enticing. But as it stands, not a huge fan, and I don't think that many people are. But not many people are playing those decks either, so it's kind of a small problem. I don't know if you want to maybe change, immune cards or something so that they're maybe a little bit weaker. You're going to hit other decks in the process there. So really, I'm not sure if this is a thing that needs to be, changed in any way, but it's something worth noting. I find it a little bit frustrating. I don't have the real solution to it. Maybe just nerfs the Synthesis. Maybe just don't interfere at all, and it's just a natural, part of the meta or whatever, but personally, not a huge fan of that at the moment. Don't see it too much, though, so not the biggest issue. Another issue that I've talked about and other people have, I think, brought up is the kind of prevalence of some neutrals. There are a couple of neutral cards that were added in the expansion that are pretty damn powerful, maybe a little bit too much, depending on, what your opinion is on that. I'm talking in particular about Regis Bloodlust and Gregoire de Gorgon. Pretty much auto-include in a lot of decks. Maybe not Gregoire, because he's a little bit harder to set up and whatnot, but Regis gets a ton of value in pretty much any deck you put him in. He's just a better Ifrit in the majority of cases, and a little bit of power creep kind of on that card, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, Regis is a cool character and whatnot, and you like the lore of having him be a part of the Crimson Curse and join decks and whatnot. And yeah, depends on your starts. Personally, I don't really mind that neutrals see a lot of play. If it's a good card, okay, put it in the deck. Yes, I see Regis a lot, but does it detract from the fun that I'm having? Not really. Okay, I see a Regis, it's a fair card, it's not wildly overpowered or anything. Okay, I see a Gregoire. Yes, it's very strong, but is it game-winning on its own? Not necessarily. Does it have counters? Yeah, you can play Geralt, you know. So I don't think they're like a problem in terms of the fun aspect. For me, at least. I know other people maybe disagree and see that it limits deck building and stuff. Really, what I want to say is that the prevalence of these cards means they probably should be in some way changed a little bit, just because CDPR's track record on kind of overpowered or overplayed neutrals has been to nerf them or change them so that that's not the case. You know, we're thinking Roach and Witchers and Unicorns, which all got nerfed, I presume, because they were quite... You know, they were quite good as neutral cards and played in a lot of decks, which maybe stifles the deck building process and means you're not running into as varied stuff as you would maybe want. But for me, not the biggest of problems. Same with Witchers. I really wouldn't have even cared that much if Witchers hadn't been nerfed. I think they were an okay card to, you know, be around in decks. They weren't really creating not fun situations. The only problem was they were, yeah, limiting the deck building process and whatnot. So probably makes sense for Gregoire, Regis, maybe a couple of other cards that I can't think of off the top of my head. Maybe they should be toned down just a little bit, but I'm not too bothered about that. I know other people might be, but yeah. Finally, I want to talk about coin flip a little bit. I don't think coin flip's something that's been talked about much. Now, I'm going to say, starting off here, I think coin flip's probably balanced as a whole. If you look at all the ranks, I can imagine that blue coin's probably quite good at the lower ranks, you know, when people don't quite understand what they're doing in terms of passing and playing good or bad cards at the right moment and stuff like that. So blue coin in the lower ranks is probably quite good, and I imagine it balances out red coin, blue coin, you know, across the whole ranks. If red coin is better in the high ranks and blue coin is better at the lower ranks, it's probably going to kind of get to 50-50 across the board. But that might be not a great thing. I don't know. I don't know that coin flip needs anything tweaked, but I just wanted to bring up that effectively blue coin got a little bit weaker, in fact quite a bit weaker with the mulligan update, because it used to be the case that the blue coin player would get an extra mulligan that they could use in round 2 and round 3, so effectively they'd have carryover on their mulligan, the extra mulligan they got. Nowadays they don't actually get that carryover on the mulligan. They still get the extra mulligan, they just can't use it later in the game where the mulligan really counts and where the points matter. You know, you get rid of a bad card for a good card, you maybe get 4 points or something like that, potentially even more if you're getting really good cards or whatever. So yeah, basically blue coin lost one of its, you know, very key and powerful upsides in that, yes, you still have tactical advantage, but tactical advantage isn't giving phantom points, it's boosting a unit, and what that means is there are some kind of coin flip abuse type cards that can really punish being on blue coin, things like Geralt, things like Cleaver. If you take a boost onto an engine, which is, I guess, what the tactical advantage is meant to be used on, then you're often playing into those cards. If you don't use it on one of those cards, then okay, you're maybe not saving your engine and then you get pushed out and whatnot. Basically, red coin is probably quite a bit better than blue coin at the high ranks. At the lower ranks, that may not be the case. And I'm not sure where that cutoff is or whatever. And yeah, I wouldn't imagine they'll change coin flip in any way, because it's probably pretty close to even, pretty close to 50% win rate for each coin across the board. But I think it's still a bit of a frustrating thing sometimes, the coin flip, especially if you're maybe playing at Skellige and they have Marauder. That card's still pretty annoying to deal with. And yeah, other than that, just tool removal cards like Geralt kind of synergizing with the tactical advantage. I know that sounds weird, but that's what they do. If you play Geralt in a matchup that typically he won't get value in, say you're against a Dana or something and they don't have any tool units, and then you're on red coin, maybe you just get Geralt value because they are forced to play into it at some point and use the tactical advantage on a unit. And sometimes it can even be correct not to play tactical advantage, just to play around, you know, cards like that. So I don't know if that's a problem that they'll address or that needs addressing, but it's worth kind of pointing out. Kind of doesn't feel quite right. Maybe the tactical advantage should just be phantom points. I know I wouldn't. I can't imagine that being too bad of a solution, because then at the very least, Geralt, Cleaver, you know, they're not going to completely push you out if they're played on red coin against the blue coin player, because you'll have 5 phantom points that can never be dealt with in that round 1. So, you know, that would be a potential solution. I don't imagine it'll happen, though, just because probably the stats that CDP are seeing are not, you know, suggesting that there needs to be any change, which, whatever, okay. Fair enough. But yeah, that's pretty much all that I have to say, guys, on this topic. Just wanted to, make a video on Gwent state at the moment and say, yeah, I'm really enjoying the game, as you've probably noticed if you've been watching streams of mine recently. And yeah, there are a couple of issues maybe, but they're kind of not even issues. I want to wait a few weeks maybe to talk about any deep-rooted issues, but to be honest, if there are any, I can't really think of them right now. The game seems to be in a solid place, and with upcoming expansions, mobile release, and whatnot, and tournaments as well, I'm very excited for the future of Gwent. It should be a great time. If you aren't playing right now, I would strongly suggest giving it a go. Try not to let the nostalgia get in the way. I do feel genuinely sorry for people that can't enjoy the game, because it feels like old Gwent, and even better at times. In fact, most of the time, I think it's actually better now than it ever was. So, yeah, people are missing out maybe, but that's you know, their decision, and yeah, really their loss. Anyway, thanks again for the support, guys. It means a lot. Q&A next video, maybe not, whatever, in the future at some point. Do subscribe, of course, for more Gwent content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.